Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Weather and Radar Meteorologist Becca Parker. Today we're going over the severe weather threat that is sitting across the Interstate 95 corridor in the east, along the east coast today. We're going to be going over the risks that are associated with the severe weather threat and the timing for this and what you can look out for as these storms are moving through. So I'll give a couple minutes to join. Just so you see in the chat, please drop any questions that you do have about the severe weather event into the chat. If you have a question, it's likely somebody has the exact same question. We're going to be moving through this storm system late this afternoon and into the evening hours, especially during the Monday afternoon commute. So big storms that we're talking about here that you want to make sure you have all your questions answered as we go through this live today. Also, feel free to download the Weather and Radar app. It's completely free. You'll be able to follow along with what we're going over here today, all the tools that you can use, and to keep up on the severe weather event, because we have a live blog going for this afternoon, so you can get all the latest updates that are happening as the storm system does move through. If you know anybody in the I-95 corridor that is going to be receiving these storms today and they may not have this link, send it to them just so they can keep up with what's going on and take a look at all the information we have to provide for today. Alrighty. So what you see behind me is the weather radar screen where you can see this whole storm system as it is churning across the lower Great Lakes and into the northeast. And later today, we're going to be seeing storms pop up right along the I-95 corridor down into the Carolinas this afternoon. So we have a large low pressure system that is churning here right across Michigan. And what this has along its southern flank is a cold front, which is helping to ignite these storms. So we already see activity here across the lower Great Lakes and into the northeast from this storm system. We have a lot of high temperatures and a lot of moisture sitting in this atmosphere to be able to support all of the severe weather development that's already going on across the northeast here and starting to develop here across the Appalachians here into the mid-Atlantic. So we're already seeing this activity start to form. So let's zoom in here on what we're taking a look at here. So like I said before, this is the weather radar. It does show the heavy rainfall in the blue, and in the purples, it's heavier rainfall if it's in the purples. We have the temperatures, we have your locations, we have the cloud cover, as well as the lightning. And what we're seeing here is if there is a lot of lightning in a storm cell, we have those bubbles turn orange, which shows a stronger storm that contains a lot of lightning activity. Now, it's likely if you do see a lot of lightning activity in a severe storm or any thunderstorm for that matter, it's pretty strong. So something you want to keep an eye on as you're taking a look at the severe weather today and keeping an eye on that, especially if you're in this area. So like I said, if you have any questions as I'm going along here, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat so I'm able to keep up with your questions and you'll be able to know more about what's going on with this event. So just so we have a couple questions so far. How severe could this be in Syracuse, New York? So Syracuse is right on the line between a marginal and a slight risk for these storms. So somewhere between having an isolated risk for these storms. And we already see here activity going on across here in New York, where we have storms that are moving in, pretty strong storms that are moving in up here. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a severe thunderstorm watch in that area right now. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for damaging gusts, heavy rainfall, plenty of lightning with these storms, isolated tornado, and even some hail as these storms do move through. I did see one more question. Puerto Rico, you are good from this storm system, so no need to worry about this storm system here. And then as far as Rockledge, Florida, they are getting, so this severe storm threat does extend into the Florida panhandle down here. So isolated severe activity is expected from this storm system as the cold front does swing through. So something you're going to want to keep an eye out for is any storm cells that are forming later this afternoon into the evening, even into the overnight hours, as the cold front does reach down as far into the Florida panhandle here. So that's where we're seeing the isolated activity for Florida in general from this storm system. Alrighty, let me get into what exactly we're looking at. So I'm going to switch over to the Storm Prediction Center here. Just give it a minute to transition. Perfect. All right, so what we're looking at here is the Storm Prediction Center map showing the risks. I talked about how we have a risk for severe weather. So what we're seeing here, especially along the East Coast, is as much as an enhanced risk after updates here. We see an enhanced risk, which is a level 3 out of 5 on the severity scale. So pretty much in your middle to upper range as far as severity goes with these storms when we're looking in this orange blob area right here along the I-95 corridor just south of Scranton and going down into southern North Carolina, even the northern tip of South Carolina as well. So we have a lot that we're going to be keeping an eye on here. This is a big population area. The latest is around 90 to 91 million people that are going to be affected by the severe weather event, even in the marginal areas. So we're seeing a lot of people that are going to be affected by this severe weather event. So and for the enhanced risk here, this is where we're going to be seeing a lot of the strongest activity for severe storms scattered to numerous storms that are going to be forming. It's not exactly going to be a straight line as far as storm activity like we see when we see a squall line, where we see a line of storms coming through. Could be pretty scattered at some times. There's going to be some places too that, maybe in this enhanced risk that gets skipped over. So something we really want to keep an eye on for this situation, because we're not expecting a full on line, is really keeping an eye on the radar for your area, because if one is popping up near your area, it may not have hit nearby. So you're going to really want to keep an eye on where these storm cells are popping up. If anywhere in your area you're starting to see sunlight, like I'm starting to see sunlight here in Western Maryland, that is giving a lot of instability, a lot of juice for the atmosphere to be able to create this environment where we can see the storm cells start to fire. So what that means is when we see sunlight, is that provides a lot more heat into the air, and so we see a rising action in the air, which causes instability. So the more instability we have, the more energy we have to feed these storms that are coming through. So if you're seeing sunlight, something you're going to want to keep an eye on is the weather radar as we go about this afternoon. So right outside this enhanced risk, we have a slight risk as well as a marginal risk, like I talked about earlier when we were going down into the Florida Panhandle. So anyone in the marginal risk area, yeah, you're going to see some storms. You're already seeing some activity here, like we said, for Syracuse as well. You're already seeing some isolated severe weather activity, even just general thunderstorms. So those are going to be moving through this afternoon. A lot of activity is already going on across the Northeast too. In those slight risk areas, we're going to see some scattered severe thunderstorms. So something you're going to want to keep an eye on, even if you're not in the enhanced risk, is for that severe weather. Still the possibility, as this is a large low pressure system that is moving into the East Coast area. So let's take a look at the risks that are coming with these storms. Like I said earlier, we got damaging wind threats. So that's really along this entire East Coast area where we're seeing damaging wind threats greater than 57 miles per hour, but in the enhanced zone where we see this darker red area, we could see gusts greater or at 70 miles per hour. So that's some pretty damaging winds that could pick up anything that is loose outside, even some trees, knock out power. So these are things you're going to want to keep an eye out for as these storms do move through. We also have a hail risk coming from these severe storms, especially here across the lower mid-Atlantic into the Carolinas. We have a severe hail risk where we're going to be seeing hail greater than golf ball size, even greater than egg size. So this is something you're not going to want to be outside during. And, if you have anything outside that could be damaged by that, and you're not in an area where you're receiving storms right now and you are able to get to that, bring in anything you have that is outdoors, or at least secure it so it can't be damaged by hail or taken away by the wind to become a flying object that could possibly do more damage than not. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for that. We also have a tornado threat extending across the mid-Atlantic, just from Scranton, PA, all the way down into northern South Carolina. Isolated to a few tornadoes are possible as these storms do move through. There's a little bit of circulation that's involved with these storms that could really produce a tornado. So something else you want to keep an eye on. And we already are seeing, let me pull that up really quick. We already are seeing the severe thunderstorm watches that are across these areas now. So something you're going to want to keep an eye on for as well is the watches that are coming in on your notifications, if you're getting any of those. Have at least 3 ways to receive a severe weather warning, and no matter if it's flooding for a tornado or for a severe thunderstorm, anything else too. Have at least 3 ways to receive that, so you're on the dot, you've got everything, you've got all the information you need, and you're well prepared. So we already are seeing severe thunderstorm watches extending from northern North Carolina all the way up into the lower Great Lakes. So these areas that even if you're already not seeing storms, like down into Maryland and into Virginia, you're not seeing storms yet, but the potential for storms is there, and that's what the watch means. The watch means we have all the ingredients that are there and they're available to produce severe storms. Once you see a warning, that means all the ingredients have come together. Think of it like dinner. The recipe's already come together, it's made, you already have it. There's already a severe thunderstorm happening when you have a warning. So that's what you're going to want to keep an eye out for. Let me double check for any more questions. Okay, yeah, Southern Maryland and then Waynesboro. So Southern Maryland, we are in a enhanced risk for the severe weather. So something you really want to keep an eye out for. If you've got family out there, just let them know to keep an eye on the weather radar, and let them know also to have 3 ways to receive that severe weather warning, right? For these strong storms that are going to be moving through. As far as Georgia goes, we do have a slight to a marginal risk in Georgia. Actually, we just have the marginal risk in Georgia down here. So like I said earlier, what the marginal risk means that we are going to be seeing some isolated severe weather as that cold front does move through, and there's plenty of energy for it to be working with. We've got a lot of moisture and a lot of heat down there. So keep an eye out for isolated severe weather as that is moving through. Isolated meaning you're going to be seeing not very organized lines moving through. You're going to see some pop-up cells that are moving through from either general thunderstorms, or it could be really severe thunderstorms that move through as well. All with capabilities of producing damaging winds and hail. So something you just want to keep an eye out for. Down into Georgia. Alrighty. Let's pull up. Okay, this is what the cold front looks like right now. So the cold front is what is triggering all of this severe weather as it is moving east. It is running into that unstable air mass like I mentioned earlier. We got a lot of heat, got a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, making it very juicy. And if you've walked outside today and you're in the mid-Atlantic and you've walked outside and you automatically feel that humidity right and hit you, that's all that instability that you're feeling, a lot of that energy in the atmosphere. So that's what the storms are working with. That's what they like. That's what they feed off of. So that's plenty there. So this cold front is going to be moving east into the east coast here, slamming into that air mass and producing these storms. So let's take a look at what we can see now on the satellite right now. This is College of DuPage. So we've already got some activity that is popping up, at least for the enhanced risk area. We're looking at storms popping up here across the Appalachians. Now, the reason why that happens is we've already got that warm air mass like I talked about earlier, but we've also got the winds coming in from the southwest and west. Once that hits the mountains, it's got to go up because it has nowhere else to go. So once that lifts, you see a lot of convection happening and storms bubbling up. And that's why we see when these cold fronts move through, especially into the mid-Atlantic, that's why we see the storms pop up over the mountains first, because that provides a lot of instability for that rising air. That's what instability is. You see that rising air. So that is why we see these storms popping up here now. Let's also take a look at what is happening here across the Northeast, where we did see we have some severe thunderstorms happening here. So we see some convection happening here. You can see that those bubbling clouds, that's what we know as convection as these storms are moving through. And these are some pretty significant storms that are producing a lot of rainfall as well. So in addition to the threats that I mentioned earlier, such as tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail, you're going to want to keep an eye out for flooding rains as well. Now, while I've mentioned all of the moisture that's available in the atmosphere, that can also be available to come back down as rainfall. A lot of moisture availability. So we could see flash flooding in these locations as well. So let me double check and see any more questions at this time. Perfect. Alrighty. So let's take a look at the tools that you're going to be able to use as you go about the severe weather event. So let me go back to the weather radar, like I showed earlier. So we see this large storm system moving through it and a lot of activity that's moving across the Northeast. Let's take a look at timing. And you're going to be able to look at the timing on your Weather and Radar app, especially if you are along the I-95 corridor. You've got the commute coming up for this afternoon, so you're going to want to keep an eye on the radar. Have your 3 ways to receive a severe weather warning, because you don't want to be out and about while this is going on. You want to be in a location where it is safe and able to shelter just in case if anything were to happen. So let's take a look at the timing for these storms. Like we saw a little bit ago, let me pull this up really quick. We do see the activity rising here across the Appalachians. This is going to continue moving east. So we can take a look at the weather radar to see when the activity does reach the area. This is about 5 o'clock. This is when we're getting into rush hour here across the DMV area for Washington, D.C. and down into northern North Carolina, where we're seeing heavy rainfall activity form for that enhanced risk area. And we can move forward in time here, 6 o'clock into 7 o'clock. And we really have a lot of activity going on through the evening, rainfall, heavy storms, and all of that. So we see the activity do extend into the Carolinas here later this evening. It's about 9 o'clock Eastern time as this cold front does move through. And why that is happening later in the evening for this area is just the cold front's not reaching this area until later this evening after dark. Another thing you want to keep an eye out for areas that are going to be receiving severe weather after dark. That is an added risk, especially if we have a tornado risk from these storms. So first of all, if you're out and about after dark, say you're driving somewhere, It's already pretty dangerous to be in that kind of situation for a nocturnal thunderstorm, nocturnal severe thunderstorms. It's hard to see any debris in the road if anything's come down. Really, your only light that comes through is not only your headlights in your car, but you've got just the lightning, which is just like that. So you're not going to be able to see much as well. And then in addition to that, because we do have the tornado risk, it's really hard to see tornadoes at night. So again, 3 ways to receive that warning. Don't go out and about if you see all this stuff popping up on your weather radar, if you've got the severe thunderstorm watch or warning, or even a tornado warning, best to just stay indoors where your shelter location is. Go to the most interior room of the location that you're in. Get as many walls in between you and the outside of that building so that there's plenty of protection for you. Get away from windows as well. Alrighty. Let's wrap up here. So I talked earlier about how we're going to be, if you've been outside, you're feeling that heat that's already outside, a lot of humidity as well. You can take a look at the temperature radar just to see how warm it is right now as these storms are going to be starting to fire for this afternoon. So we've got, 90s and upper 80s here along I-95. And as this cold front does move through, we're going to be seeing with the rainfall, the temperatures start to decrease, especially when we see that rainfall. As it does move through. So this afternoon is going to feel pretty steamy. It's already really steamy right now, and we're going to see those temperatures drop as the rainfall does move through. It's going to stay pretty humid though. So we're going to see all that energy really piling up with this heat as it's come through. And lastly, this is really one of the bigger severe weather events that has happened so far this year, especially across the mid-Atlantic. We haven't seen much. This is one of the bigger severe weather events. So brush up on your severe weather emergency plan, especially if you're in that enhanced and slight risk area. Have that 3 ways to receive a weather warning. Have a shelter location place in mind, and make sure to communicate that with whoever is involved in your home or in your building. So if you're at work, make sure to communicate that. Have that emergency plan and contacts and everything like that you're going to need in case something does happen like that. So we're getting into summer. We are definitely into summer now as we just passed solstice. So we're going to be seeing a lot more severe weather events happen as we move through these warmer months. So brush up. This is really the first big one that we've seen so far this year. So this will be a good reminder to get everything together that you need so that you can be up to date. And just in general, when it comes to severe weather in your area, Weather and Radar provides the alerts right to your device so that you can set up exactly what you want to, what kind of notifications you want to receive. So yesterday I started receiving severe thunderstorm alerts right on my app, indicating that there's going to be severe weather today, and it shows up at least 36 hours in advance. So you'll be able to get that right to your phone. All right, let me double check for any more questions. If not, thank you all so much. I will be checking questions and comments here on the live throughout this afternoon. We're going to be keeping coverage throughout the rest of today as well with a live blog, so you can keep up to date with all the latest information that's coming through when it comes to the storm activity that's going to be coming through today. Have your Weather and Radar app downloaded and updated and ready to go. Those 3 ways to receive a weather warning. I'm going to keep saying it. I'll always say it so that you can have all the information that you need. Thank you so much.